if you've been following me around at least a little bit, you know I'm very interested in the culture stuff that's coming out of this, and how this court case is working. Everybody's really interested in this. You're getting a lot of chin stroking opinion pieces, some of which are good, some of which are awful, some of which I'm trying to lightly manipulate with the quotes that I give them. And so this one effectively says that what celebrities used to do to rehab their image was to go on Oprah Winfrey or to go on 2020 with Barbara Walters, to get a glossy covered page type article. And what Johnny Depp and his team are doing here is writ large one of those kinds of moves in a trial setting. So their subheadline here is: the famously private Johnny Depp chose to air his dirty laundry with help from his legal team. In these times, there's no such thing as too much information. And that's their premise. I'm going to link this, of course, so you can check it out yourself. We try to use limited amounts of this. And I think the overall thesis at the top here is correct. But money isn't the point here. Reputation is.
Agreed.
That Depp, a top-earning A-lister and famously private before all this, chose to air all of his dirty laundry, the surreptitious recordings, the ribald texts, the prolific substance abuse, simply to remove the stain of Me Too from his person, at the very least shows how deeply committed he is to restoring his good name. I think we're in broad agreement on that thesis. Am I accurate there?
I will say that some of this was already out because of the UK trial. So I think his legal team, when looking at what's going to happen, if you sue in the UK, what does that look like for you? I think this decision was made in the UK trial before it was made here. But yes, he knew that was coming out. This is now an addendum or an asterisk to that, where he gets the rest of his story out, which is why he fought for the cameras in the courtroom. But yes, I mean, the texts were out, the audio was out, all of this was out before this trial.
I also think, well, just to build on that, I don't think as many Americans paid that much attention to the UK trial. And I feel like you kind of had to be like, oh, I pay attention to these things. Yes. And now I think the fact that it's in the US, on Zoom, on YouTube, maybe on some people's TV channels, I'm not really sure, makes it so that it's in your face, even if you weren't really paying attention before. And also, I think in addition, there's a factor of, I may not be able to restore my reputation, but God damn it, you're going to get some of this mud too. Like, you know,
there's definitely some of that.
Yeah. You know, like
mutually assured destruction.
Exactly. Like, you shouldn't get to keep Aquaman. You shouldn't get to keep, you know, whatever endorsements you have. You shouldn't get to keep these things when you also abuse me. Because there are some people that are watching this and saying, I think they were both abusive, but I thought it was just him before. And that is a win for him because he was dragged so far down.
Agreed.
You know, so
it's a good metaphor. You're going to see it in this article.
I agree. It's the mutually assured destruction is something I said was kind of from the beginning, because most of his stuff's been controlled by her narrative. So
yeah.
Yep. And I agree. And I think part of this is, I think you're right about the son. I think this is overall a kind of think piece that's considering them together, that he goes after the son from their 2018 article for the same reason. And this is the extension of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
He says, no doubt Depp risks overexposure by untangling his mess of a personal life. So why is he putting himself through such intense scrutiny? Well, for 4 decades, he's established himself as a fallible star who isn't easily embarrassed. In court, he doesn't have to worry about his side of the story being condensed for space, clarity, or context. And in these modern times, snarky as it seems, there's really no such thing as too much information. Mm-hmm. Depp might feel he caught a major break when Fairfax County Judge Penny Ezkarate, I don't think I've ever had to say it, so I apologize, allowed Court TV and others to broadcast this tragic affair, effectively setting an actual stage for one of the best actors of his generation, probably accurate, to play to the camera and milk his close-ups. Perhaps he thinks
maybe most beloved.
Yeah, I mean, he's very loved. Absolutely.
Loved.
Perhaps I didn't know how loved he was until I started watching this trial. Gosh, I love him.
TikTok has shown you the love with the Captain Jack Sparrow run memes.
Yeah, they love him. And Netflix loves him too, because now there's nothing but Netflix in my recommended. That's Johnny Depp, you know?
This is why I need you around, Emily. There's TikToks. They run with the arms out. They're doing the Johnny Depp.
The Captain Jack Sparrow runs has become this huge. My TikTok is absolutely flooded with this trial. People who are like, I'm not interested in law, but I need to see this. I need to see that. People love the conspiracy theory of, is Amber Heard doing whatever on the stand? I mean, people have gone deep with this trial, but even in the larger context of celebrity, you've seen other celebrities doing like Jack Sparrow run memes on their TikTok. So it's really, now we've got, you know, us muggles and traditional celebrities all engaging on social media, watching this happen in a way that's never really happened before because you don't have access to it. I mean, the amount of blue checks in my DMs across platforms is bananas, and everyone's fascinated by this trial and wants to know. And it's, everybody wants to understand what hearsay is now, which is, whoever thought that would happen? Whoever thought that the muggles would want to know? Like, but explain hearsay to me more.
It's funny because like I still remember sitting in evidence class and being like, well, so the syllabus is like at least 1/3 hearsay.
Yep. Why? Why is it so much?
Well, it's real hard. There's a lot of stuff on it.
Real hard, guys.
You don't even learn it all the way until you get into practice and using it. I mean, it's you, in theory, it's great, but imagine all the law students that get to now sit down with this trial and be like, oh, that makes more sense. I have context for it that you didn't really have before in a real way.
It's examples of something you already care about. Like that's the premise, maybe not of all of Law 2, but at least a number of our channels where you say, hey, you got this news story that you care about. And now let's talk about some of the stuff that's the scaffolding and the background and all that. And I think that's so useful. This is why when I'm giving quotes on this stuff, I'm like, no, it's not. It's not just crazy people on Twitch putting like, calendars up and all this kind of thing. This can be useful. You get out what you put in to some extent in terms of who you look to watch this with. But yeah, it can be very useful.
Well, so much of our life in the US is governed by laws that people don't understand. They don't know how our court system works. They don't know how the process works unless someone they know has gotten swooped into it. And so this, I think, gives everyone, like civics goes over your head in high school because you have no context, and everyone's coming back around to learn. And then the international audience on this has been huge because of the celebrity driving it. And people are like, wait a sec, you have juries. Wait a sec, how are the juries picked? Wait, from just members of the public? They're not professional. They're not paid. Are they educated on the law? Do they go through law school? Wait, they don't. They're just normal people that the lawyers have to educate in real time. It's for the international crew too, seeing how our system works so differently is also pretty wild and I think really interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And what's interesting to me about this first paragraph is that they end with this, perhaps he thinks he can pull off the role of a lifetime, which of course is a mirror to what his team tells folks just happened with Amber Heard's first day and a half of testimony, that's what she's doing. Now we have different opinions on whether or not she was succeeding in the role as Johnny Depp would frame it.
Yeah,
that was an opening that is what this is from her. That's been their whole premise of this case. She's playing the role of a lifetime, and their premise, Heard's premise, is he's an obsessive, abusive ex-spouse, and that this trial is further abuse.
Yeah, and he's a monster when he gets various substances in him, like the Hulk, like a rage monster.
Yeah.
It's not only that; it's a little bit more insidious too. It is that, but they're also kind of saying, yeah, he says he didn't do it, but he wouldn't really remember because he was drunk and high the whole time.
Yes.
There's a statement that her people just put out, and they were just like, well, we're not surprised he probably can't even remember half the things he did. That's what they're implying to the jury, that he doesn't remember it, so just believe her because she wasn't drunk and high the whole time. And I find that to be disgusting because I still think there's an undercurrent of he's a drunk, he's a druggie, he deserves to get his ass kicked. That's kind of how it's coming across to me. And I
got upset about those portions of the statement that are, they're hiding from evidence by, using the rules of evidence.
And that disgusting.
Yeah, and then that kind of thing, because it just puts people that are otherwise watching from afar that don't have any background in this, on their back foot.
And it's like when people call constitutional objections, they use loopholes, legal
technicalities. Yeah, there are no technicalities. There's only law.
Excuse me, no, it's called the Constitution, and they're called rights, not technicalities and not loopholes.
Yeah. It's only our most important legal document.
Right.
So, there's that.
I hear you.
Oh, it's just a technicality. No, it's called the Fifth Amendment.
I felt that way with the Cosby discussion, right? The Cosby discussion may well be a massive injustice, but that was a constitutional question.
Yeah, it was.
There's
it
no
was. I did a video on that, and that was a major problem. And that was what it was. It was a constitutional issue, even though a monster went free. It was a constitutional issue.
That's not a technicality, even though I'm fully on board with that. Doesn't seem right.
Right.
But not a technicality.
Not a technicality.
Prosecutors have to do better. But also them putting out that statement that evidence was being kept out after we've read through that motion for sanctions where they have not turned over their stuff. They did not follow the court's order. Like my head spun around. I was so angry about it. I'm like, how do you have the audacity? I caught myself. The audacity to come up in here after you have refused to turn over evidence prior to trial, and they will probably get a limiting jury instruction at the end. We're going to all be listening to jury instructions in real time going, boom, there's the jury instruction that this side did not turn over necessary evidence. And I think between her performance on the stand and potentially that jury instruction, it's going to help this jury, if they're inclined to, say, you know what, maybe the print version, but no way with this online version. And give
was her sister deposed yet? Because
no, see, that's the thing. They never completed her deposition. So
is she going to testify? She shouldn't be able to testify then.
No, they're not. She's not going to be able to testify. And so that will be another thing. They're keeping even my own sister off the stand. Well, whose fault is that? She's your witness. That's your problem.
Years to have her deposed. This case has been pending forever. Why hasn't your sister been deposed? She's an eyewitness to an assault and alleged victim of assault by Johnny Depp.
Perjury. Because she doesn't want to perjure herself.
That's it. She doesn't want to be deposed.
She doesn't want to perjure herself. And there are other witnesses that say that she has disclosed to them that she's lied about things. So they would bring those witnesses in. So she can't testify.
Yeah, that'll be another article.
They'll get
her sister denied outside the courtroom, maybe feigning.
Well, I mean, you look at how this is going to be presented, right? If Amber Heard loses, you've already seen the spoiler alert in the statement, which is the system kept her down, and it's a perpetration of that patriarchy kept me down by excluding all my good evidence
and that's
due to my own misconduct.
Yeah,
system fails people. It's not failing Amber Heard.
Yeah,
it's just like with the SA allegations. It's just like with the DV and intimate partner allegations, right? These things do happen, but they're not happening to you. You are a person of immense financial privilege, okay? Let's take everything out of it. Financially, she is far more privileged than many other women could be. You have every single tool at your disposal in your arsenal to seek justice for yourself. And the reason that you're not going to get the outcome that you think that you should get is because you're lying, not because the system is against you. If she loses, it's because she lied, and it's clear that she's lying.
The reason we're here is because the system, and myself included, came in not wanting to believe that someone would lie about this. Everything came in stacked in her favor that we can't believe that you would lie about this. But with every Me Too allegation, this is the only one that I have seen where no one else has come forward. Not another single woman has come forward and said, yes, Me Too. Actually, he was creepy on a movie set. He did this. He did that. Yeah. Nothing. I
said that in my last stream. They don't act in a vacuum. Guys like this, with this level of power, they don't act in a vacuum. They don't have one victim.
Yeah, this is the weirdest case of domestic assault ever. Nowhere up to his life in his 50+ years has he ever engaged in domestic abuse. Then out of nowhere, he engages in domestic abuse. And then when the relationship ends, he stops with the domestic abuse all told. This is the weirdest fact pattern ever.
Well, and not just like getting
reactive abuse. It's a perfect fact pattern for reactive abuse.
Yes.
And reactive violence.
Which is what her expert testified to.
Yep.
But they should flip that in closing and say everything that her expert says, that was Johnny Depp. Everything, just take out she and put in he for Johnny Depp. He's the victim.
Which this expert wouldn't do because she was paid by Amber Heard. So she would not take out the she's and put in the he's because she doesn't believe a man can be a victim. But you can believe a man can be a victim because you've seen it in this court and you've seen it play out for 6 weeks that this man is a victim of his abuser who sat on that stand and lied to you.
Yeah.
Emily, did you steal a copy of the closing arguments from the Depp team?
No, she's ghostwriting them.
She's ghostwriting them.
Closing's my favorite.
The other thing, though, is that...
Well, that was definitely a closing paragraph.
There's so much potential here for a closing on Johnny Depp's side. It's like, where do you even start? It's like hidden in a candy store.
It is.
Like, what?
I'm finishing with the tape that says, well, go ask the jury to believe you.
I think that's a good call. I think it's a good call. Your last thing
are the case. That audio, that is the case.
That was what changed me.
Go ahead and tell the jury you're abused.
The other thing I think is
perfect moment to end with his direct, because that's what hung in everyone's mind. And that was the headlines from those inclined to actually watch the trial and write headlines of what's going on in the trial. That was absolutely the moment when they said, tell them how you responded. They played the audio and then they had Johnny Depp at the end say, yes, I am. And that is it. And yes, it should be the very end of not their closing, but their rebuttal.
Okay.
The other thing that I think is important is that it isn't just that these things didn't happen to her, they happened to other people. And she's exploiting all of those other people for her own gain. She's exploiting the tragedies of everyone who has been a victim of SA or DV in order to get ahead. And she's using them. She's willing to devalue their stories if it gets her a little. So everyone who stepped forward and said, it's been hard for me to come forward because people won't believe me, she's making it a little bit harder. She's putting a little obstacle in their way. Everyone who, I can't say the words on Hoeg's channel. I'm trying.
I didn't realize this was going to be such a
on my no list.
Unmitigated gall.
Yeah, the audacity.
Ooh, I like that.
It's brazen to steal a line from Judge. What was his name? It's
Schroeder.
Jesse Smollett judge.
Yeah.
Jesse Smollett judge. With
No.
the brazen-
That was Rittenhouse.
Oh, okay.
Rittenhouse judge was, don't get brazen with me.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's the worst kind of exploitation and self-interested behavior that one could imagine. When we have this diagnosis that she's a narcissist, well, it fits perfectly in with that.
Well, it also goes with, it cannot be the best legal tactic to present her as the most virginal innocent that ever walked the plains of man. And that, to me, what really worked for Johnny Depp, and I don't know that it worked at the time exactly, because you could hear me on the various streams saying, "Oh, that's a bad fact. Oh, those drugs were really doing something." That talking about these various bad things. But at the end of all that, you felt like, if not perfectly sincere, because it's court, you felt that there was a level of sincerity from Johnny Depp that is currently completely unmatched by Amber Heard.
She's not even trying.
And the thing is, catching her in these small little things that the jury's going to question, like the lipstick, really, catching her in these small little lies, it's like, well, it makes it much easier to believe she would lie about something so big that most of us are predisposed to not wanting to believe she would lie about if she's lying about all this small shit that's easily disproven. She's just shooting herself in the foot with it.
And I think the ACLU stuff is useful to that as well.
Yes.
Because that's her going out to the media and lying for exactly the same reasons that you might lie about this Washington Post op-ed. And when you can line those up, that's millions of dollars. That might not be much to Johnny Depp or Amber Heard, but it's a heck of a lot to a juror listening to. You're willing to lie about a children's hospital donation in the millions of dollars.
Yes.
And not just lie about it in the media, but also in a courtroom.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You lied to the media, you lied to the court, you'll lie to anybody if it gets you ahead, won't you?
I think that's effective.
That's where the actual malice is. It's like, look at these lies. She knows they're lies and she does not care. And they can argue it's pathological and then point back to Dr. Curry and be like, she cannot actually tell the truth. But if the defense had leaned into that too and be like, she believes it all, so it's not actual malice because she believes it.
You know what? That actually would be a very good defense. My client is sick in the head. And so it wasn't actual malice. She just lies all the time, but doesn't know that she's lying. So it wasn't actually actual malice. She believes the crap she says, guys. And so
you can't away with Hughes. I thought that Hughes had a chance of coming in and saying, "Well, look, she's got certain issues," and they went for perfection. They went for no. She's an innocent that is being downtrodden.
You can't run that because it just ends her career. Yep. If she's the kind of person who will make this stuff up and so forth, then nobody can put her on a movie set. Yeah. You can't put somebody like that near the talent. It's
hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, you cannot put her near a director. You can't put her near a producer. You can't put her near an actor higher or lower on the tier. Like, it's just, at that point, she needs to be kept away from everything because she's lawsuit bait. And, So she
She's
can't
willing
run
to
that.
burn it all down.
Yeah.
She's willing to burn it all down to serve her own purposes. And I think that's what we're seeing. And I think, Depp's team has room with some of that audio to argue. Dr. Curry said she is willing to go to lengths to hold the relationship and get him to stay and fight. Their couples therapist said she will start a physical fight to get him to stay and fight when he wants to leave. And I think Depp's team has a really good argument to say the reason this is done with malice is because she was burning it all down so he would have nothing left but her. And this was the lengths she would go to hold him in this relationship, like you've heard all these experts say. They've got so much to work with.
And like she is sent, and she also gave her own reason in those recordings where she said, I had to get out ahead of you. I had to get out ahead of you. They made me do it because I thought that you were going to say something about me. And he was like, I was never going to say anything about you. Well, it's not my fault. That's not the words of an actual victim.
Right.
No,
it's not, because you're saying, you're not saying I said this because you abused me. You're saying I said this because strategically it advantaged me.
Yes.
That's concerning.
And she apologizes there, right? In that tape, she says, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You made me do this. Your people made me do this. I've never. And the one thing you see a lot with TV is you ask people, why they don't leave, but you never see them strategically. You just don't see the strategy like this being described to the person they're saying is their abuser. You see them working with shelters or therapists or whatever, but you see them strategically trying to maneuver for safety and for some financial security. You don't see them maneuvering for public opinion. And in her sobbing to him in San Francisco, she's saying, what about my credibility? What about my reputation? She's not saying, I don't feel safe. She's not saying I couldn't get away from you because I'm not safe anywhere. She's saying, well, what about my credibility? What about my name? What about my reputation? I have never.
Yeah.
Well, and we know after that tape is made, we know she's going to sit in a hotel room with him with a sharp knife and offer him a sharper one. Right? I mean,
I just have to point out one little thing too. Back to the drug use. The picture that she showed of the lines of cocaine. From the perspective that she took the picture from, it looked to me like she was doing the lines of cocaine.
Yeah.
Is that crazy to me? Am I crazy? I was like,
driver's license. It's her driver's license and a tampon applicator.
Yeah, that's no man is gonna use a tampon applicator for anything.
Okay.
If you're deep into addiction, you'll use anything for anything.
Where's he gonna get it from?
He had his whole doc kit there that she said he was using for his drugs. Am I to believe he doesn't have paraphernalia in that whole zippered up kit that he uses regularly? He's a celebrity. There's
not enough women on the jury. There's not enough women on the jury because a woman's gonna look at that and say, men don't even want to go in your purse, much less take your tampon applicator and put it up their nose.
Men on the jury, men are going to be sitting there going, I've never been desperate enough to grab a tampon applicator and stick it up my nose. But some of them might not know what it is, but it's her license in that picture. And that freaking cup that she uses in all of her pictures that Depp is arguing on stage, it's in the video with him slamming the cabinets. It's in the cocaine picture. It's in the weed picture. And it's in the broken bed disaster photo. That mug is in every single photo.
It gets around.
Sure does.
But yeah, no, you do look at that photo and I don't know if everybody remembers this, but you remember Johnny Depp essentially snarking to Rottenborn saying good composition, eh?
Yeah.
And that kind of thing, because it absolutely looks like an Instagram setup. Like that's going right on your stories. Like that's what she made.
Yep. It goes to her setting him up. And so do all the photos of him passed out. Like, why? Like if your spouse is passed out like that with ice cream and he said, what, I didn't partake in the festival of ice cream or whatever.
Right.
Taking a photo of their spouse like that.
Well, isn't the one photo supposed to be from the detox? And it's like she's complaining about it, and then she takes a picture of him slumped over in a chair, and it's like, well, he's in detox, isn't he?
Right. What is he supposed to look like? No, a lot of this is I am going to build a case against this man, right? Whether it's like from the beginning, like I'm going to have leverage even before they knew they were going to.
You can't leave me because I'll destroy your reputation and embarrass you and call you an addict. I'm going to call you an addict. I'm going to show the world how this goes back to the disgust. I'm going to show the world how disgusting you are. You've got ice cream all down your lap. No one can trust you. No one can work with you. But that goes to exactly what Dr. Curry said of any lengths to make them stay.
Yeah.
The ice cream down your lap is just like so hilarious. Like this is what broke you, right? He fell asleep and the ice cream melted. Wow.
Oh, what a monster! But no broken nose pictures, and no real busted lip picture, and no black eye picture. Just a little smudge under your eye.
No bleeding feet on the slippery floor where she was slipping in glass all over the floor with her feet that were sliced all to hell. No pictures of it.
Yeah. I know Chad is always asking for pics, but this is the one time where it might be appropriate.
Yeah.
Sorry, we didn't even finish your headlines. Oh, keep going.
No, we'll keep going on the headlines. I honestly,
look from law school. It's got multiple colors. I'm here for it.
Well, I hate to be the one to do this, but I have court in 20
No,
minutes.
you definitely. You've been here so long, Natalie.
20 minutes. Okay.
Folks, Natalie has 80,000 subscribers now, but she could have more. We're getting records on this channel. We've got 7,000 concurrent viewers right this second. So go over, like and subscribe to Natalie. We're having a good time. And I'm definitely going to do that right after this video, Natalie. And I would love to be on your channel sometime because, frankly, you're very smart and you're a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure what this Wednesday's live stream is going to be, but it's going to be something. You're all invited. I'll drop a link, and I'll see you guys later.
All right.
Good to see you.
Thanks for dropping by, Natalie.
Bye, everybody.
I tried a trial.
The other thing that always gets me is when we see these pictures of the drug use, there's like several pictures, each a little bit different. And I'm like, if this was a picture of, when you're just taking a picture, you take a picture. You don't move shit around and see how it's going to look and get like 4 different pictures, some with some things. Like
you're trying to make it look as bad as possible, right? I mean, like that's the implication.
It's a staged shot. Like she's doing A/B testing on it.
Yeah. Yep. So A/B testing. Yeah. Which works best? Run it up against your family. Which looks worse?
Yeah.
We'll
focus group this one. Send it on, and Group A can say what they think.
Your friends who won't finish their depositions.
Sister.
Well, I think that's.
I would think my brother would do anything possible to like show up if he was going to be good to my case. He'd do anything to help.
To the extent that Whitney's unwilling to potentially lie, let's just assume that's the fact. I mean, like maybe this is the best she can do for Amber.
Yeah.
Not show up and perjure herself.
Yeah.
Well, and not show up and get caught perjuring herself, which is way worse for Amber too.
Well, I mean, if she's not willing to do that, it's like, well, the truth would not be great. I mean, if Amber's lying, so I mean, it's like, all right, so I'm not going to do that.
Unavailable.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're a good third of the way through this one headline. It's all good. He continues with, as PR moves go, this isn't just an extreme gambit for Depp. It's the Hollywood equivalent of a nuclear bombing run, which is the mutually assured destruction that Emily alluded to, with no guarantees that anyone involved will emerge unscathed. And the only issue I have with this is, yes, it's mutually assured destruction. I think Depp was already hit. I mean, this is more like the strategic retaliation than hitting this gambit button.
Yeah.
And it's not like he, his career was flatlined. We've heard that here. It might get revived if people see what's going on here, but we threw nukes at a nuclear holding country, and now, oh my God, what's happening? Who could have seen this coming?
Yeah, they're coming back. Well, and then this article goes on with stories that I would bet that Emily knows better.
I followed.
Yeah, so we got a reference to a Kardashian lawsuit.
That got used by the jury very, very swiftly on the defamation bits, to the point where they hadn't even introduced any defamatory statements or alleged defamatory statements that Kim Kardashian said, and she got dismissed by the judge on a motion to dismiss when it went to the jury. So that case did not go. As intended for Blac Chyna.
Yes, this article indicates that her reputation is in even smaller tatters coming out of the court case. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but the
Kardashians have never been so happy to not have attention on them. Normally they are very attention seeking, but they weren't even in court when the verdict came down, and their attorney said they're at some event. They were at the Met Gala when the verdict came down. So the lawyers they're not present. They're at something.
That Met Gala keeps coming up like all over the place. It's in Kardashian cases. It's in 2 separate instances of the Heard Depp trial.
It's a hub for bad things happen. It's like at the DA's office, we used to joke nothing good happens at a house party, but now it's nothing good happens at the Met Gala.
At the Met Gala.
Anna Winter joke, sarcasm.
Gone are the days when celebrities washed away their stains in soft-focused network TV interviews. With Walters retired, Sawyer MIA, and Winfrey and Couric not really doing reputation rehab anymore, only Gayle King is left, and she barely has any airtime or patience for such wayward personalities. Then they go over and talk about the way this was done. Apparently, Johnny Depp gave an interview to British GQ in 2018, but the 8,000-word cover story, which is some writing, folks, called him an outlaw, was roundly criticized for glamorizing domestic abuse, which kind of assumes its premise a bit in that criticism. But you can see how this wasn't working for Johnny Depp in fighting off what he was getting, which leads him to the Sun case and today. Now, they do describe the Sun case here. At a glance, the court system wouldn't seem any better equipped to redeem Depp, especially in light of how decisively he lost his 2020 libel suit against the Sun when he sued the British newspaper for calling him a wife beater. Now, in terms of my post-mortem homework, I'm going to go look at the Sun stuff a little bit more, or more fulsomely if it's introduced to the jury.
Didn't the decision rest the credibility finding very heavily on her having donated the money and therefore having no financial incentive?
It did. And it discredited the police officers, and it roundly discredited Depp based on his drug and alcohol use. I think that's part of why they're leaning into it so heavy in this case, hoping the jury comes out on the same side of that the judge did. But the judge, every account where Depp was using drugs or was drinking, the judge kind of discounted Depp's contradictory statements to Heard's, and yes, rested very heavily on the fact that she had made that donation.
Which she hadn't made, of course.
Which she hadn't made.
Well, the ACLU informs us that the past tense to donate really they're not worried about that. They think everything's still fine there. So, Depp and his attorneys have been accorded great swaths of daylight hours to cast the one-time sex symbol as a deeply wounded child of abuse who'd sooner run and hide than strike a woman. So the Guardian, we've looked at these articles. They seem to have a bent on this. Maybe all of the British journalistic outlets have a bent on this, but you get a little bit of that from the color of that kind of framing. And then there's some story.
They're saying you should have hit her.
Well, right? Well, they're almost mocking of this, right?
Yeah. Hoeg, do you have mods in here so we can get rid of the bots?
I have given people mod powers.
Get it, mod.
I'll take care of it. I'll do it.
Oh, Uncivil, do you have mod powers? Just give me a hey, and I'll add you.
I hope so.
I saw them do. I saw Squirrel McSquirrel, Secret McSquirrel getting it. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
You know, your chat has reached a level where YouTube's pushing it out a bit when you start to see those come in. So it's a sign of a successful stream. So well done.
Good. Well, that's silver lining. Any of you that haven't been here before that want any of those powers, just say hey, and I'll try to hit them when you come by. Although I don't. Yeah, I can see them. So yeah, I think it's a little bit mocking, right? In this framework, it's he'd sooner run away. Yeah, sure. Right. I mean,
it is a little bit mocking of men potentially being a victim. And this goes into what we saw a little bit in that, the press statement saying that he was being cowardly and pathetic. They're leaning into these kind of tropes that aren't helpful for the narrative, but also I don't think the UK media is inclined, nor do they care. They don't, that doesn't seem to be what they're worried about.
Well, and also if you go back far enough historically, there were laws that actually punished male victims of domestic abuse for being victims. We don't have that anymore, but it used to be that was a punishable offense, that it was, you should have gotten her in line and that therefore you will be punished for it.
Control your better.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing elements of that in some of these, news stories. It's really horrific.
It is. Yeah. And I think I said when I was looking at those statements, which again, if that's real, I just have a whole number of problems with the way they even just use words and grammar.
It directly to Court TV. Her PR agent with the white shoes has been sitting next to Court TV's lead reporter on the scene every day in court. And they haven't come out and said that wasn't us. I have to believe, based on all of the circumstantial evidence, that is a real PR statement from her actual PR team. I think it's horrible. I think it's childish, and I think it reads like she voice memoed somebody and said, release this, but I think it's actually released by them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think intellectually, I agree with you that all that is true. And yet I want to believe that a highly paid PR firm would craft that better and avoid what I said when I was looking at it first is like they put you in a box that if you're not already on Team Amber Heard, all the things they ask you to do, to me, push you away, push you into Johnny Depp's category because it's all of that kind of language. If you imagine flipping the genders on, you didn't even have the strength to look at this person, and you go, oh my God, that is like the worst possible thing you could say to someone who is claiming to have been abused by this other person. Yep. It's so patently obvious.
You were cowardly and pathetic for not locking eyes with your abuser in court. I can't imagine that ever being written.
All right. Looks like I'm being told we're getting hit a little hard. I'm going to chat amongst yourselves. I'm going to go hit the buttons to turn on the sub chat.
Yeah,
all right.
There you go.
I've
had to do that lately. Just put it like a zero time limit for subs, but at least it keeps the bots out.
It's hard with the bots. So, but the sexism in the language is interesting. And I think that if anything comes out of this case, it's opened up a broader discussion on a worldwide scale of the way that kind of the general public languages these things and general perceptions of who's a victim and who's not and who can be and who can't be. And I think that's something in law we've known for a long time because it's something you need to be sensitive of, particularly in criminal law, to make sure that when somebody walks into the courtroom, you don't assume they're a defendant or assume that they're a victim based on race or gender or anything else. So I think that we're catching up and having those conversations in the general public. So.
Yeah, I mean, the criminal law system is still not there yet. I've seen far too many instances of like guy has stab wound and, and like in some cases, like a stab wound in the back. And her story is, I followed him and stabbed him because I was upset. And then when he pushes her away, they're like, well, we're going to charge him. That still happens all the time.
Yep.
It's not a fair playing field. And it's going to take some conversations like this to maybe get that opened up. So that's my hope with this, is that people sort of look at this and go, maybe our notions are not what's, actually going on.
I think my other hope is that this, at least from the headlines to how it plays out in the courtroom, and we saw this with Rittenhouse too, from the headlines to how it plays out in court, there's sometimes a vast difference. And that's why when the lawyers are like, I don't know what I think about this yet. I haven't seen everything. I haven't seen enough. It's not that we don't want to believe one side or the other. It's that there's not enough information yet. And you can't make a decision based on initial news reporting until you know more. And maybe it will help maybe the interwebs will hold off on rushing to judgment on things. I know is naive,
I love the optimism,
but hopefully at least in people's own critical thinking, it's like, oh, I see this headline, but also could there be another explanation or another side, or do we know everything? And at least getting people to I have more questions about this is a good place to get to. Hey, I see this is what's being reported, but I have questions. Good. Then we're at least halfway there. Ask questions. Questions have been demonized since 2020. It's like wild to me.
I think that's one of your phrases, isn't it, Emily? I have questions
all the time.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. My degree is in economics. I use that in law, and I like to talk about it that way. I always consider it on the margin, right? You can't make these huge sea changes of people, but if it's one person you hear, which is a little bit precautionary principle-y in a lot of context, but if it's one person, that's great. And on the margin, it's more and more people. Where you raise this stuff, you have these conversations in law too. You talk about these things like this. You go through these headlines, and ideally, one person says, "Hey, that is interesting." And the next time they see somebody just kind of making those assumptions that come up with, like this is framed in a specific way, then you say, okay, at least I note that it's framed that way. Maybe I still go along with the headline. Maybe I still go away, but that's how you grow and make your own determinations on this stuff.
Start seeing the lenses instead of just your own lenses that you're looking through. Start seeing how other things are being put through different lenses is a very helpful skill that is not always something we talk about.
Meanwhile, Heard, who risks losing her role in the Aquaman franchise in future work if indeed she's the one found to have been physically abusive, recently sacked her PR team and moved to have Depp's lawsuit dismissed. So I have like 1,000 problems with this paragraph, one of which is that she will not be found to have abused anything as part of this lawsuit. And did I get something wrong there? It's a defamation suit that Johnny brought.
I mean, maybe if it's the court of public opinion, but that's not what they said. They said found to have been physically abusive, but even finding that she defamed Depp doesn't mean that she was abusive. It just means that he wasn't. So I don't think
and the most likely avenue to that is she's like preemptorily abusive, but it's an ancillary kind of concept. So yeah, and then this. I'm sorry, Emily. I keep talking over you.
No, it's okay. I do that. I'm the ADHD. It's the impulse control's bad, especially.
And then the end of this paragraph is she did sack her PR team. That's a big deal. And then like everybody reporting on the motion to dismiss at the end of when the plaintiff rests is killing me.
Well, first of all, in Virginia, I believe it's a motion to strike, but same.
Yes, right.
And it's a pro forma motion, and everybody's trying to make fetch happen with that too. The best part about that motion to dismiss is it gave the lawyers some leeway to again make their case to the court of public opinion. And Ben Chew stood up with his whole chest and was like, "Hello, court of public opinion. She's the real abuser." It was fantastic. It was.
I had no idea. I didn't know Ben Chew from Adam when I met him at the start of this trial, and he seems like just kind of he's got that really specifically kind of grandfatherly way that he acts stone-faced no matter what's happening in court. He steals jelly beans. And then the first time he elevates his voice on that opposition to the motion to strike is like, what? I'm sorry, where am I? What?
And the jury's going to feel the same way, which is going to make their closing more powerful. The jury has heard Amber Heard's lawyers screeching for at least 3 weeks. When everything's important, nothing is, and they start to tune out. Johnny Depp's team has been very mellow, even in their objections. They're not huffing and puffing. Heard's team is going like it's not that big of a deal. Depp's team has been very mellow. So when they bring the fire in closing, or even a moment or two in cross-examination, which they have not done yet, then I think it's going to make the jury sit up and go, oh, this must be important because, you know, when your mom always yells at you, it's like, yeah, whatever, you're still yelling. I think that's what Heard's team has done to themselves by how they've comported the first 3 weeks of this trial. So it was definitely a sit up and notice moment. And even when Rotten got up and was like, well, Your Honor, I think Ben Chew wrote that for, you know, another audience. It's like, no shit, dumbass.
Yeah.
No, it is true. I mean, I like that line from Rottenborn, which is, hey, you know, obviously he's doing whatever. This is not the way we normally do these motions.
Obviously. But I loved watching this whole legal team work together. I've never had a team. Normally when you're in criminal prosecution, it's you. And they're like handing him notes because they've already cited the case that was being argued. And they've already gone, the proposition of this case is actually this. I'm like, what must that be like?
Oh, see, I loved it too. I called it out. I'm like, go research team. You saw them immediately launch into finding the case. Then they make the note. Then they hand it to him. And then he trusts them so implicitly. He just says, Your Honor, it doesn't stand for that at all. It stands for this. And it's like, that's a squad right there.
Yes. It was really interesting to watch. And it's like, when people are like, how do these cases cost millions and millions of dollars? That's why they have a full flying fleet of lawyers at their disposal in 2 rows of chairs and then another row behind them. And probably some, if not law clerks or research attorneys or paralegals, watching the streams and monitoring social media as well to pick up on things that might not be caught in the courtroom. It's very, very interesting to watch these teams work.
The only time I've had a row of lawyers behind me was when I had an appearance at the Court of Appeal, and my matter was like this trivial thing. And right afterwards, they were just like waiting to go for their turn. You know, unrelated. They're just like, finish up so we can argue. Yep. It's law in a way that we don't normally, you know, get to do, but it's fascinating. I wish I could have, you know, a team of researchers and so forth.
Well, we have it now. We've built LawTube. We're like, we now have
a research team. Your Honor, I need to have a live YouTube link set up on this back table.
I can't afford to have you guys all there for a trial I was running.
We're going to be fine. I did want to call out as well. This is a friend of mine who may be coming on sometime. You saw in one of that first slides when we talked about this at the top of this episode, that I'm not going to be limiting guests to lawyers. We're going to be talking about stuff that's regularly in virtual legality as well. And this is Ains. You might have heard me reference him on Legal Bites. He is the head of Seasoned Gaming, where I appear every Sunday on their Bitcast to talk analytically about the gaming industry and video games and the fun type of stuff, not just Bungie and not just Activision and Microsoft and that kind of thing. We just had our 200th episode. He has a link to this video. He doesn't want to join, but he very thankful for the super chat. If you're interested in any of that, if you love virtual legality, check out Seasoned Gaming. I'm going to add a link there. He'd be super. We would surprise the heck out of him if we could drag like 1,000+ into one of the episodes, and he deserves it. He is doing such a good job putting out content in what I'm going to be honest is often a very toxically reported on industry. Okay, so there's a lot of bias. There's a lot of mistaken headlines. I don't need to tell you this if you've been in virtual legality with me for a little while, but he's out there doing a better job than most, trying to get cut between those things, talk to developers, do those kinds of things. He will be on the channel. I will force him to be on one of these hangouts and headlines at some point. But go check it out because I'm there every weekend if you like hearing from me, and it's a lot of fun. So thank you very much, Ains.
If you talk esports on that channel as well, and I'd like to know the answer too.
Well, I would not say that it is our wheelhouse, but when it's in the news and where someone's interested in it, we do talk about it. We have a senior IGN reporter who's on the Bitcast with us. We have Ains who runs Seasoned Gaming. And we have what would I call Dan, the everyman who jumps in and talks with us and doesn't speak lawyer or IGN reporter, and is a lot of fun to have as well. So I would say we cover esports to the extent it pops into the news, but we're not separate esports team players ourselves. Okay, we are right at the end of this article. We're going to finish it. It's very exciting. Obviously, it's still early days, says the Guardian author. Heard has only just taken the stand Wednesday and already accused Depp of grooming her. Okay, so Guardian, we have to talk about using words.
Yeah, that's a pretty hard word nowadays.
So first of all, this sounds like she actually said that, Guardian.
Which she didn't.
But she wasn't even remotely close. She didn't even actually say he was Harvey Weinstein or it was sexual harassment or he abused his power. She just implied it.
She implied it strongly.
She implied it strongly.
She strongly implied. She has already strongly implied that Depp, was creepy. She strongly implied that he was creepy.
Yes.
But then said that they kissed and it was magical and she had butterflies under her skin and they fell in love. I mean, I don't know if any of you have had people be creepy with you in your workplace. I have, and it's not, I wouldn't ever want to be in a room with that person again after they'd been creepy and inappropriate with me in a workplace. So for me, it was hard to get over that she was like, he was very creepy. And then we were making out on our press tour. I'm like, okay.
What? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no. And I think it's this accused verbiage there that's killing me, right? That, no, she never says grooming. And I don't even think grooming really applies to this scenario because she's like in her 20s. When this story is happening, that doesn't mean it definitely isn't problematic if it were exactly as presented.
The legally appropriate maybe use of that word.
I'm sorry, which one?
Grooming. I don't think it's it's maybe what she was trying to imply, but maybe is not the quite right use of that, other than being that he was perhaps being inappropriate with her at the workplace. Yes. That's kind of what she was alluding to.
Yeah, I called it a harassment. I mean, it's his production company. He hires her. That scenario could be that. And that's what she implies. But I did see this right at the end because it's like, what are the, primacy, recency? This is one of those things you're going to remember from this. It's like, she did not accuse him of grooming her. But for now, his nuclear lawsuit appears to be doing the job of restoring his good name in the eyes of his fans and proving that the only way out of crisis is through. So again, discounting what he's doing. I mean, this is kind of normal. This is better, if you can believe it, Emily, than the first Guardian article that we looked at over the weekend. But I do still find its premise interesting that as we see Heard and Depp take the internet by storm, that this might actually be part of the future for celebrities settling their grievances. What do you all think about that?
I think the facts on this one are a little unique.
Mm-hmm.
Selfish wants that to be true. Stream all of your trials.
Yes.
But I also don't think it's that PR is the appropriate thing for court. But we saw this with Nike and the Satan shoes. The only reason Nike sued Mischief after all the shoes got sold is because they wanted the headline that Nike was suing over the shoes because people weren't paying attention to their press releases. So is court a dual purpose PR / airing your grievances and trying to get a legal remedy? I think we're there. Do I think it's always the appropriate form for court? No. Do I think we'll see judges maybe less inclined to maybe grant cameras in the courtroom to cut down on this? Perhaps.